Takulandirani ku AMTV Malawi kuchimake kwa nkhani zenizeni. Ngati nkhani imeneyo kuno kulibe, dziwani kuti nkhani imeneyo ndi yabodza.
Chair, thank you so much. I hope the minister will be able to respond to all these questions because I think I have two substantial questions. But, Honorable Minister, the Ministry of Defense was established in 1993, and the key role or mandate is on formulation and implementation of defense policies. And you have mentioned that the defense policy is in draft form. Would you confirm that there is no any defense policy from 1993 to date? Number one. Number two, your presentation on slide number 4, the last sentence, says the Ministry of Defense receive regular reports and briefings on the status, utilization, maintenance, and operational readiness of aviation assets to ensure accountability and effective resource management. You receive regular reports. Number one, would you share these reports that you have been receiving? That's my first question. And my second question is, in your analysis, because I believe when you went into the ministry and the PS, you looked at these regular reports. There is a question about black box, why the aircraft did not have the black box. I'll put it in that plain civilian language. Is there any recommendation in your ministry telling Malawi Defense Force to actually acquire a black box and put in these aircrafts because they came without it? That's what we hear from the report from BFU and the Commission of Inquiry. Was there any recommendation, because that's what your ministry does, was there any recommendation to Malawi Defense Force to acquire voice recorders and black boxes and put them in that aircraft because it was a VVIP aircraft as well? My last question, Honorable Minister, is just to get a confirmation if you have seen any documentation in your office of the ministry being informed about the acquiring or the acquiring of the flight by the late former vice president, because we just want to understand the policy guidelines on when the VVIP request an aircraft from MDF. Do they need to report or inform your ministry about it? Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Minister, you may take questions from those two submissions, those two witnesses.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. I wish to thank Honorable Member for Mwanza Central and also Honorable Member for Lilongwe Mode. From Mwanza Central, 2 reports from MDF. In as far as I'm concerned, there is just 1 report. I don't know about 2 reports. So the report that I have, just like you said, that if I can share with this, I think there was a mention to say, okay, whether I need to check with the chair, whether the report that I have is the same one that the chair has, but I don't have any problem to submit the report that I have so that the chair can also check whether it's the same one that he has, to avoid circumstances where maybe I might be withholding the report that I have, and yet the report that the chair has perhaps is the second one or is the first one, depending on whichever is the first one, whichever is the second one. But I wish to confirm that I have 1 report, and working with the Malawi Defense Force says there is 1 report. So is this one I'm ready to share with the committee, Honorable Chairperson and members.
Yes, what's the point of order?
Chair, I just wanted to really emphasize the idea that we know there are 2 reports which were made confidential, and this committee is interested. So the first one was from MDF, but the other one was from Civil Aviation. So I just wanted to highlight, according to the presentation by the Minister of Justice. Thank you, Chair.
So the report from Civil Aviation does not fall under the purview. That will be pursued separately. But I'm aware about the background where Mwanza Central is coming from. There is an allegation that there was a report that was issued within a week after the plane crashed. Okay, it was a very brief report. That's an allegation. Okay, that brief report was never circulated. So, apart from the actual detailed report that we have, that Parliament was served with, we have a full dossier that we have been served with. It hasn't been made available to the members for security reasons. Okay, but Parliament has that full dossier, that full comprehensive report. But I think he's making a reference. He's trying to clarify. There was a preliminary report. Eh? There is a preliminary report that was provided to Parliament, and that report was made available to some members. And members were asked, if you wanted to access the report, you can come to Parliament. They would make it available. That was made very clear. So that had time, would come to Parliament, read it, and make it, and then they would acquaint themselves with that particular official report. So that's where Mwanza Central is coming from. Yeah, just to clarify that misunderstanding. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate it for that clarification. But let me just go back and say that indeed I have one report, and I'm more than ready to share that report with this committee. The second one was the role of the minister in the event of an accident. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, if I may take you back to slide on the slide that talks about air safety. That's slide number 9. It should be section number 9, air safety and accident investigation procedures, where I've outlined the procedures that is followed. So when we are looking at all this, I reported that in the event of an aircraft accident, the procedures that we follow include immediate reporting through the military chain of command. So the military chain of command is whoever was responsible for that activity. They will have to report back through the line of command within the military, up to the minister, up to the chief of defense force, the minister, and even up to the commander-in-chief. Again, the issue of preservation of evidence, obviously this now would be the responsibility of those that would be responsible for the actual, whoever would be available at the site of the of the event, and of course the investigations that have got to be carried out. So what I would like to emphasize is adherence to the line of command. As you might appreciate that that's how the military operates. So you not expect anyone, any Jim and Jack, to report about an aircraft accident without necessarily within the military following the line of command. So that's what has got to be adhered to until the same is reported to the minister as well as to the commander-in-chief. The documents, if there are any in my office, I think the honorable member from Mwanza Central says that apart from the reports, if I come across any documents related to the accident, I would like to say no. I haven't seen any other piece of paper or document that talks about this accident besides the reports that I've made mention of. The chain of reporting, I suppose, again, this is about the chain of command with regard to reporting an accident, which I've already responded to. Coming to Lilongwe Mude, no defense policy since 1993 to date. Perhaps I'll take that with a caveat that I did mention that I'll start with the Defense Force Act, and not necessarily with the establishment of the Ministry of Defense, because the defense policy that we are talking about is hinging on the Defense Act. And the Defense Act hinges more on the Malawi Defense Force. And I did mention that the Defense Force Act is that of 2023. So I will not be talking about absence of a defense policy since 1993, which is the establishment year for the Ministry of Defense. I would rather be talking about defense force or lack of defense policy from 2023, because the defense policy will be riding on the Defense Force Act. I did mention earlier on that from the Defense Force Act, we'll be talking about the Defense Force regulations and, of course, the Defense Force, in fact, the Defense, not Defense Force policy, but rather Defense policy. So, Honorable Chairperson, I would like to confirm that I would rather be talking about absence of a defense policy since 2023 and not necessarily since 1993.
Yes, yes.
Chair, the Defence Force Act of 2023 was a replacement of another Defence Force Act that was there. So there was a Defence Force Act before 2023, but because the amendments were many, then there was that parliamentary procedure. You don't just repeal one or two. If there are many, then you replace it. So it was there before 2023. Thank you, Chair.
In other words, Honorable Minister, the question is, do we have a defense policy in Malawi as we stand?
Chair, as I mentioned earlier on, that we don't have a defense policy as we speak now. There is one that is being developed and is in draft form, which we expect to finalize before close of this year. But thank you so much, Honorable Member for Lilongwe, for that clarification, and indeed that that clarification that has been made.
Yes, that's my.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted if you can clarify if your ministry has a policy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chair, I wanted the minister to be straightforward, through Chair, because when we keep saying by the end of this year, are we saying January to December, or we are talking about the financial year, the calendar year which we use at the Parliament, where it started from 1st April to 31st March next year, so that we should be specific on that one.
So members would like to know the plan of action. What's your plan of action on the policy?
Thank you very much, Chair. When we're talking about the policy and the conclusion of the same, we are talking about the calendar year. That's by December 2026. The question to say, do we have the ministry policy? Chairperson, let me clarify that when we talk about the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Defense, sitting where I am, there is very small defining or differentiating line between Ministry of Defense and the Malawi Defense Force. Because the Ministry of Defense, I would say, exists just for the Malawi Defense Force. So when we are talking about the defense policy, there would be a very small line differentiating the defense policy as that of the Ministry of Defense and that of the Malawi Defense Force. Because unlike other ministries, for the Ministry of Defense, we deal with the Malawi Defense Force only. So when we'll be developing, as we're developing this policy, we are developing a policy that will be working for both the Ministry of Defense as well as the Malawi Defense Force. Because this is a national defense policy, so to speak. And I must also say, Chair, having this, that the members of this committee may wish to know that besides the defense policy, we are also talking about the national security policy, which exists. So the national security policy is different from the national defense policy, because the national security policy now talks about all the different securities that you can imagine: food security, health, environment, and everything else, inclusive of the national security. So we have a policy, national security. What we are talking about here is the defense policy. The black box, with your permission, Chair, if I can go back to Lilongwe, the black box. Any recommendation to acquire the black box? Yes, Chair, recommendation. I think everybody agrees that with the 10 June 2024 accident, there are so many lessons that we have learned as a country, sadly, acquiring these lessons through an accident. Because I suppose, just as the committee might have established that, as Lilongwe has said, this committee has learned that the aircraft never had a black box for some particular reasons, but it has been noted that it is very important to have black box for obvious reasons. I'm also aware, Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson and members, that when we are talking about black boxes and military aircrafts, particularly state aircrafts, there are also some conventions that do not make the black box being available in such kind of aircrafts. I think we're talking about Chicago Convention on civil aviation that do not make the black box be mandatory on state aircrafts. However, with what happened, and of course also considering, because the black boxes don't come at a small price, they also come at a small price. So it would be important going forward to consider having these black boxes even in the state aircrafts, even in the military aircrafts. I know Lilongwe for his previous life, that he knows the reasons why the state aircrafts don't have a black box. There are some specific reasons. Again, with your agency chair, and I hope even Ilongomudo will permit me not to get into those details. But I think the lessons that we've learned through this accident, it will be very, very necessary to consider having black boxes in the military aircrafts for obvious reasons. Confirmation of any documents on acquiring on how the aircraft was acquired by the late Vice President. I would like to confirm, Honorable Chairperson, that I haven't seen any document that indicates how the Vice President acquired usage of this aircraft. Let me stop there, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Lower Kasangazi, and then Kasungu North. We probably will wind up with Mulanje North.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair.
Zomba as well. Sorry, and then I have Zomba City South.
Thank you very much, Chair, for giving the people of Lower Kasangazi a chance to ask some questions. I have two questions for the Honorable Minister. The first question is on the fact that we are told that whenever the Vice President would like to acquire an aircraft from the military, the President of the Republic as Commander-in-Chief has to approve. I would like to know, Honorable Minister, if you are aware of this requirement and if the Ministry of Defense is involved in that process. That's the first question. The second question is on the fact that we have been told that the aircraft that was involved in the accident in 2024 was acquired around 1986, and that it was 40 years old, around 40 years old. I would like to know if your ministry has plans to acquire new aircrafts. Thank you very much, Chair.
Kasungu North.
Thank you, Chair. Kasungu North has got only one question to ask the Honorable Minister. My question is, what formal or informal defense cooperation arrangements exist between Malawi and neighboring countries regarding aviation emergencies? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Minister, you may take those two submissions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members. Honorable Member for the Kasangazi is saying that I suppose we are informed is this committee, or this committee is informed that the VP, when the VP would want to hire an aircraft, would need approval from the President, who is the Commander-in-Chief. So as I mentioned again, Chairperson, I will take you back to my presentation where I presented the procedures that are followed when hiring the aircraft, which is on number 7, where a formal request or a formal memo has got to be submitted by the government ministry, department, or agency, stating the purpose of the trip and why military equipment would be required for such kind of a trip, and everything else that follows. And this section mentioned that the commander of the defense force is the one who would now manage all this process. Now, when it comes to the vice president, obviously the expectation would be the office of the vice president writing such kind of a memo. But understanding the difference between the office of the vice president and other ministries and departments, the assertion that this would require approval of the commander-in-chief could be very right, because we are talking about the office of the vice president, which perhaps basically would also be understood as being very close to the office of the vice president being very, very close to the office of the president. It makes more sense to ensure that the commander-in-chief also gets to be aware of the need by the vice president to use the military aircraft. I would consider this to be a different arrangement and not being an ordinary arrangement like the laid down procedures, because of the office that we're talking about, because this is a VVIP office. And talking about since moving on to the next question, which is the aircraft that got involved in this accident having been acquired in 1986, about 40 years old. The number of years, Honourable Member, may not really be an issue of concern, but whether the aircraft went through the regular maintenance which is required, which is a requirement, because an aircraft is different from a motor vehicle. An aircraft, I think, just like maybe a ship, these are matters that, these are pieces of equipment that live very, very long. as long as regular maintenance and repair works are done and refurbishments. Because for aircrafts, in some cases, you know, some parts would be removed even before the aircraft flies, just because the mandatory number of years has elapsed. So aircraft's maintenance follows a different ballgame altogether, different from what you'd consider to be an ordinary maintenance of an equipment. So 40 years is not really much of a problem, but whether the routine maintenance and the compliance with the appropriate aviation regulations were followed. So plans to acquire new aircraft, yes. When I got into office as Minister of Defense and went around to appreciate the nature or status of equipment that the military is using, Malawi Air Force is one such unit that is requiring a lot of investment. So we have plans, yes, to acquire an aircraft, particularly that we lost this one in the accident. So it just makes it mandatory that we should think of a replacement sooner than later. Honorable Chairperson, from Kasungu North, formal cooperation, aviation cooperation with other partners, yes, we have such kind of cooperation, and not only in aviation or Air Force specifically, but we have different and several military cooperation with other nations within Africa and even beyond Africa. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Mulanje North?
For point of order, Chair.
Yes. Just put on your mic.
Yeah, you remember when I asked 3 questions, I said I have a few remaining. So I don't know, maybe after Mulanje.
Yeah, I will recognize you. I just want to give a chance to others that haven't spoken.
Thank
then
you.
I'll come to you. Mulanje North?
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Minister, from the presentation, I think on the, is it slide number 9? Air safety and accident investigation procedures. There is a very beautiful, layout on the procedures that are supposed to be followed. But my question is with respect to the accident of 10th June 2024, where these followed. You having perused the reports that were before you in your office. Just one example is on the preservation of evidence. You may agree with me that after the accident, the social media was awash with graphic pictures of the victims, very appalling state of the events, which were supposed to be properly preserved, for the integrity and the dignity of the victims. Another quick example is that the plane that was involved in the accident, Donier, it was taken from Tungwa. It's now at the Air Force Base in Zomba. And it is not in the manner in which it was. It is actually shredded. It is now in pieces. It's in pieces, just to use the simple explanation. So I just wanted to know whether these procedures were adhered to following the accident. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, maybe we just take another question from Zomba City South, so we can manage time, and then I'll come to Mwanza.
Chairperson, it might not be one question. Being a vice chair, I think I'm privileged to have more than one question. Honorable Minister, I have several. I will start with your last response. You said there are plans to procure new planes. And I just wanted also to remind you that as you are preparing to procure new planes, you might also want to look around within the barracks. If there are other new planes that are not being flown, maybe because we don't have skills, maybe you might want to prioritize those ones before we start buying more new planes. Just an advice, in case there are new planes that are just lying idle. Chairperson, my next one is to take also the minister to slide number 3, I think on page 3. The last sentence where you say no person or authority may direct or deploy the MDF to act in contravention, etc., etc. What I have in mind is that we are talking about the chief, the commander-in-chief being of the overall boss of the military. This means that even the VP cannot move the military, the MDF, to do anything without the head of state, the commander-in-chief, knowing. Meaning, as you have responded, the procurement of the plane that is in question, you are telling us that the second citizen could not procure without the head of state, the commander-in-chief knowing. I just want you to confirm that before I move to the next question.
Honourable Minister.
Chairperson, if I can quickly come to this, I think the procurement that we're talking about here is procuring the aircraft services, not necessarily procuring the aircraft. So I think I mentioned about this earlier on to say, considering the office that we're talking about, this is the office of the Vice President. Despite the other arrangements that we have, the standing arrangements that we have with regard to acquiring services of aircrafts from Malawi Air Force, where the ministry or department agency is required to issue a requisitioning memo, etc., I did mention that considering the nature of this office, the office of the Vice President, I mentioned that it's very close to that of the President anyway, more or less like the same presidency. So I wouldn't really think that the Vice President would acquire usage of an aircraft without the principal knowing. Because in any case, my expectation is when the Vice President is traveling, he must take leave of the principal. So as he's taking leave of the principal, certainly the principal would also want to know what sort of transport mode the Vice President is undertaking. So I would consider it to be very important for the Office of the Vice President to write the Office of the Vice President, write the Office of the President and Cabinet, which is the Office of the President anyway, so that they get to know that there are these arrangements happening. And therefore that being the Office of the Commander-in-Chief would therefore move within the same line of command that I made reference to earlier on. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Chair. I was asking that deliberately because I think we have a point in question where the late Raf Kasambala, I think there were witnesses who sat where you were sitting last week, and I think it was brought to the attention of the committee that there were some phone calls that were made by friends to let Kasambala to procure the aircraft. So I just want to also to confirm that there was no memo deployed in the procurement of the services of the flight that carried the remains of late Kasambala. I think we have on record that our colleagues who were at the funeral were making calls, etc., etc. So I just want you to confirm that there's no other exception apart from the Vice President. Chairperson, moving on. Chair, the last question would be related to what Mwanza Central was asked regarding I think it's Mulanje North, regarding the wreckage. You might want to respond clearly to say, within the preservation of evidence, your ministry has done the needful to make sure that that wreckage can also be inspected in case we want to go back there to make sure that we have evidence. Because what we saw in Zomba, as the Honorable Mulanje North has said, I think most of us were left unsatisfied because these are pieces of the wreckage. I don't think that was a preservation of evidence, but we might want to confirm if that wreckage can still be used in case of we want to use it as evidence. Chair, submit.
So you might answer this question, which will also answer the question of Mulanje North at the same time.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. I wish to thank honorable member for Mulanje North on the rules that are supposed to be followed, and of course with the specific reference to the Donier, whether preservation of evidence was adhered to. Chairperson and members, as you may agree with me, when you're talking about preservation, obviously there's also a time limit to which you can preserve this. So in this specific example, when you're talking about this accident happening in Nkata Bay, June 10, 2024, and today, 22nd of June 2026, whether when we're talking about preservation of evidence, this aircraft should have been in Tunga till today. Perhaps, Chair, that may not necessarily be attainable. However, the evidence that is there at Zomba Air Base, you might have seen that perhaps it's not in the original form that it could have been whilst it was at Tunga, but you might have found it if you've been there. I've been there myself. It had to be, some pieces had to be cut in different ways so that they could transport the wreckage. But at least the wreckage is there as part of the evidence, but certainly the wreckage is not at its original site where the accident happened, but the wreckage is there. And the wreckage is there as part of preservation of evidence. Because if somebody wants to see if at all there was indeed a plane crash, they can go to Zomba and see the remains of the plane crash. But they will not be at the site where the actual accident happened, because practically it would also have been difficult to preserve this evidence at the site where this accident happened in terms of provision of security and other attendant requirements. So yes, we are still adhering to this, particularly in as far as preservation of evidence is concerned, because the wreckage is there. We haven't destroyed it. It's there. It might just be that it's not in its original form as and when the accident happened. Zomba City South, you talked about this committee getting to know that it were friends that procured the services of Malawi Air Force with regard to hiring this aircraft, whether there are any documentation. I have information that there is documentation that was provided by Malawi Air Force to the friends that he requested the Malawi Air Force to provide these services to transport the remains of Leti Kasambara. So these documents are available at the Malawi Air Force. I think Zomba City South, you did ask about new plans regarding, I did not pick this one, right? Or maybe it's the one that I already responded to.
Chairperson, I did ask the Honorable Minister, as he's procuring new planes.
Okay, yeah. So yes, as we are procuring new planes, new aircrafts, yes, we are aware, because we had to undertake an assessment of the existing aircrafts and identify the gaps. So we have some aircrafts, for example, that are lying idle at Chileka Airport, the omwe 600 aircrafts. I think there are 2 of them. So we are aware of the challenges that we're experiencing as not to use them. Again, the same issues of resource constraints, but we are working on making sure that these aircrafts should go into, they should be flying, working with the suppliers of these aircrafts, and also with regard to the resource constraints, working with the Ministry of Finance and Treasury, that we can secure some funding to pay off the obligations that are making us unable to use the aircrafts right now. So yes, Chair, we are aware of the existing aircrafts, and we're making efforts to make sure that we also use them, much as we're also making efforts to acquire the others that we want to acquire. Thank you very much, Chair.
Mwanza?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Honourable Minister, if this issue is of, if it's a security issue and you cannot respond here, I'll be fine with it. But maybe through the chair, you can provide the information. I want you to probably, inform this committee if our military is able to conduct its activities in any condition, rainy, cold weather, under the dark. Do they have the apparatus to operate or to conduct its activities under such conditions? If you cannot respond it now, but if you can probably finish that information to this committee, maybe by close of business tomorrow. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Honourable Minister?
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Member for Mwanza Central. Thank you very much for at least giving me the preface and that advantage that if I cannot respond now, maybe I can provide this information to the committee later on, because indeed, Chair, just like I did respond to the others, if I'm to stay here that our military is not able, what would be the impression? But that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. In terms of the capabilities, the readiness of our military, of our Malawi Defense Force, if you really need that comprehensive report of our readiness, Chair, I may have to again check with the security protocols as to how much disclosure we can make with regard to our readiness and our capability to operate in different weather or conditions, be it raining, fog, dry, hilly, or you name it, water. We can provide at a later stage, but having checked to what extent can we share this information. So thank you very much, Mwanza Central, for at least giving me that, that perhaps I can share later on and not necessarily within this. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, Chair, just to emphasize that information is very important, I'll give you the background. The accident happened in the morning. Search started around 4, and at some point, search was stopped because weather conditions could not allow. That's why we need that information. It's very important for this inquiry. Thank you very much.
Yes, Molingana.
Chair,
Sorry,
Chair, I just want Mwanza Central to confirm that the search started at 4. That's what he said. But I don't remember to have that detail that it started at 4. So I want to confirm if that is the fact that it started at 4. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, we were together at Ntungwa. This information I'm providing to the Honorable Minister is what the police told us at Ntungwa. I may not be exact on the time, but that's something that's why I said maybe around, yeah. But this question is specifically on the search that was stopped. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mwanza Central. I think the facts on when it started will be verified, okay, when we go to search and rescue. I think we've had a good 2 hours with the Minister of Defense. If there's any lingering question, we can pose that question now, so we can move on. Doa Kasangaze?
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to object to Mwanza Central on his request that the Honorable Minister here should bring information which will not be tested by us through questions. I don't think that will be fair. If the Honorable Minister here brings information which will not be tested via questions, then this committee will be prejudiced. So my view is that if the Honorable Minister is to bring any information, then he has to come back for cross-examination for him to be asked questions on that information. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, no, well noted. Honorable Minister, mine is just a simple question. You stated about the Defense Council meeting regularly. I don't know how regularly do they meet?
Chairperson will meet every quarter. Of course, in some circumstances, as and when there is a matter that needs to be considered, but regularly and as per the Act, ordinary meetings of the Council are every quarter, but we also do have extraordinary meetings. Thank you.
So does the Defense Council approve the budget for Malawi Defense Force? Is it submitted to the Council for approval?
Yes, Chairperson, as I mentioned that the Council receives reports from the Commander of the Defense Force as well as the Minister of Defense. So these are some of the matters that are considered by the Defense Council.
One of the questions most Malawians have is the distinction on security matters pertaining to the military. Do you have a set criteria on what is confidential, cannot be discussed or disclosed, so that we are very clear on which areas we can go, what are the no-go zone areas? As it stands, transparency and accountability is a challenge, but maybe you can explain to us what are the no-go zone areas and what is there any set criteria?
Chairperson, the military in its nature is a defense and security organ. In which case, I wouldn't sit here to say, you know, these are the specifics that would not be considered to be security issues or defense issues. Let it be known that the military, the Malawi Defense Force, by its nature and by its establishment, and looking at the objectives for which it was set, it is a security organization, and indeed most of its activities are security and defense activities. So much so that, yes, most of it would be no-go zone areas, and I think that's why even entry into our cantonments or establishments is highly restricted, just entry. Chair, disclosure of some of this military information, most of it is highly confidential, Chair. Thank you very much.
My last one, you have stated that recommendations have been made to procure new equipment, one of which is a black box. That the black box must be fitted in most of the military aircrafts. Can you confirm here that what you're stating is that there was no black box in the Donier 228? Or not? Is that the implication?
Chairperson, in the Donier that got involved in this accident, I would say that there was no what is called, I think the honorable member for Lilongwe mentioned of the voice recorder, cockpit voice recorder, flight data recorder, and I think most of these are the ones that are referred as to the black box, for the reason that it wasn't there for the reason that, as it were, it is a state aircraft and a military aircraft. And I mentioned earlier on that according to Chicago Convention, military aircrafts or state aircrafts it's not mandatory for them to have the black box. But specifically for this one, the Donier, that got involved in the accident, the reports that I've seen, according to the reports that I've seen, the reports are saying that, because I wasn't there, but the reports that I've seen are saying that the black box was not there. So this is in accordance, according to the reports. Not me, because I wasn't there.
Okay, because we are in the process of gathering evidence. So anything you state, we will take it very seriously. Are you suggesting that the MASPA must be pursued further? Because we haven't yet concluded. You're basing this on the reports. It's not something that you know for a fact.
Chairperson, yes. My answer is yes, that has got to be pursued further. Because I wasn't there, I cannot confirm that this aircraft, this specific aircraft, did not have a black box. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that clarity. Honourable Minister, we've had extensive discussions with you, and we appreciate your time you have taken to explain to us the relationship between MDF and the Minister of Defence and the reporting lines. This will help us for making recommendations and also clarity on our report. We appreciate your time, and we don't take you for granted. There were areas where it was sensitive, we couldn't go to, where we appreciate for the sake of national security, and there's a space we cannot go to. If you have any other comments, remarks you would like to make before you leave, you're most welcome to do so.
Honorable Chairperson and honorable members of this ad hoc committee, I wish to reiterate my gratitude for inviting me to appear before this committee and provide information that we could provide as a Minister of Defense, as well as part of it as a Malawi Defense Force. I'm aware that you'll be meeting the Malawi Defense Force later on, particularly the CDF, the Chief of Defense Force. I wish to reiterate and put it on record that the issue of the black box is not an issue that I can confirm that it was not there or it was there because I was not there. What we are talking about here is, I'm saying it would be very important to be having this piece of equipment, even in state aircrafts, although the Chicago Convention says it might not be mandatory. But I think it would be very important for us to be considering, particularly when we think and consider that we are using these aircrafts, for example, for disaster responses, for search and rescue. So to undertake such kind of functionality would certainly require such kind of pieces of equipment in such kind of equipment that we use. Otherwise, on behalf of the Ministry of Defense, my colleagues that are here, allow me, Chairperson, to thank my team members for putting all this together to allow me to appear before this committee with this information that we provided. We remain available beyond this time that we are leaving this room, should you require more information from the Minister of Defense, as well as from the Malawi Defense Force. I wish you all the best as you continue to undertake this noble course. I'm aware that it's not an easy job, but let God guide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister and the Principal Secretary. You may take leave now.
Osaiwala kupanga subscribe ku channel ya AMTV Malawi.